Good morning, guys. How are you doing? It's Stephen here. The day after City's 2-1 win against Liverpool. I don't even really know what the topic of this video is. I said to Nicola, I want to go live. I want to go and do a video. I want to just be with my people, and you guys are my people. I want to talk about Manchester City. I want to talk about last night. I want to talk about that victory. It's actually my 12-year anniversary today with Nicola. So 12 years of me and Nicola being a super team, and thankfully that was precursed by a wonderful performance from City that made today an awful lot easier for me. So thank you very much, Manchester City. And it did actually happen. It feels weird to say that, and obviously it's a little bit like, yeah, of course it happens. It's, City win games every now and then, but this is something that a lot of us would have felt was almost a no-go given the context of everything around Manchester City right now. And for what it's worth, I did say, and I was hoping for 2 victories, but I knew we'd go unbeaten across Spurs and Liverpool. I knew we would do. I actually had a feeling we'd win at Anfield too. Didn't I say in my preview actually 2-1? I think I did say in my preview 2-1. Someone double check. I swear I said my heart says 2-1 Man City. Head says draw, I think, but I said my heart. I'll take that anyway. Yeah, but I did have a feeling that we'd do all right. Give it weird because it's a weird season, like sometimes it's the weirder seasons where you actually end a curse. Like they're the ones where something strange happens, like we were terrible in a lot of games, but we beat Liverpool, or but we beat Spurs. There's always but though there is still a chance that this game actually means something. In the sort of greater. The greater story of this Manchester City season, City of complete football, absolute pepper squad, and I think this game could actually be a rather pivotal moment. And as the sort of dust is settling on the aftermath of that game, and it was a chaotic ending, I do think City were good value for the win. I think City were the better side. I am under no illusions that this is not a great Liverpool side. Though Liverpool did turn up in the second half, I do think the occasion and the sense of history between the two teams, which is there now, whether we like it or not, I think it did spark a bit of a fire inside Liverpool and got them going in that second half in particular. And for City then to stem that relentless red tide and turn it around and find a way to win the game, and deservedly win the game in the end, was really, really impressive. Thanks, Brian, just singing. It's to you, Esteemed Kompany. City love you more than you will know. Oh, good old Vinny. I miss Vinny. Talking to Vinny, very Vinny-esque performance of Mark Gay, which we'll get into in a bit. But yeah, I think for us, the game had a vast magnitude. Like I think the celebrations on his face, honestly, of Guardiola, I wouldn't be surprised if even if we'd been the Carabao Cup final, if he's celebrating less than that. Like I think Anfield was a cup final for him. To win that was absolutely momentous, and you can only have to look at the eyes of the players. I'll bring this image up, which is on the thumbnail of this video, but it's there for a reason. I mean, the intensity in that is wonderful. You see O'Reilly there, brilliant, screaming. Semenyo locked in the middle with Rodri looking focused, and Rodri has he's sort of an angry celebrator, Rodri, where it's like the relief, of the intensity that all comes out. Haaland buzzing, why can't I recognise who that is next to Haaland? Why can't I recognise that? Because that doesn't look like whoever that usually looks like. Ruben Diaz there crushing Ain't Nori into as well. Whose face is that, and why can't I recognise them? Oh, Shirky. I realised it's Shirky. Shirky looks a little bit different in that picture. But yeah, I think it's Shirky. Yeah, I just didn't recognise him for some reason. He looks a little bit different there. But yeah, there's intensity across that photo, and I think that sums up the mood you're sort of in the camp, really, and what this game meant to these players. And I've been sort of scrolling Manchester City's Twitter this morning, really taking in all the pictures, because you look at the intensity and the passion from Erling Haaland there, utterly delighted, elated to be so pivotal in a game of such magnitude for City, especially given his own struggles so far this season. There's obviously João Luigi Donnarumma, the man is an absolute hype machine, and I think sometimes you need that, and I think this Manchester City side collectively need that, and I think these moments feed into the feel-good factor. There's you see Reinders, Rodri, Semenyo, Haaland again, Bernardo, the passion, the intensity. Bernardo Silva, the epitome of excellence and dedication. Just a wonderful man, and he deserved that yesterday. I mean, look at the intensity, and look at the That's Guardiola doing impression as well of Donnarumma. If he's save, he's going, oh, he went great save. And he's like, the impression of the save, yeah. They're all buzzing from this, absolutely buzzing, and I think they should be. You know, there's a real need for something like this, and I think the players will take an awful lot from it. I do believe there are moments that are foundational, formative for every side, you know, where you take something as a group away from an experience. And I think there's something in, you know, when they say that people have sort of like shared trauma, will stay together forever. Not necessarily trauma, but there's positive versions of that, like, you know, memories and so on. And I was thinking an awful lot last night about how we are all being incredibly harsh in this Manchester City side. I was thinking about Mark Gay and how good he was. Then I was thinking also about how new he is and how little we know about him as a player and how little we've seen him and how we don't really have a connection yet. And it's weird, but essentially you form these sort of like parasocial relationships, don't you, with these footballers that you don't know personally, that you'll never likely meet, that you don't really know much about, but you get attached to them. And you get attached to them because they're part of the furniture. They're just around for an awful long time. Like, there's a reason, you know, we love Bernardo Silva. It's because he's been there forever. And he's been so wonderful. And he's been so, you know, so present and so involved in all this success. And there's a reason Bernardo Silva can be relied on, because he's been there forever. And because Guardiola knows exactly what he needs to do. And he knows exactly what he needs to do for Guardiola. And essentially, I guess what point I'm making is that I don't even feel a familiarity with a lot of these players yet. You know, the way that, you know, some players are just reassuring with their presence. That only comes with experience and time. And a lot of these players just don't have that yet. We haven't seen their full breadth of their personality. You know, everyone, we've only seen 2 weeks of Mark Gay. Like, we've not even seen just what he'll look like after a year. We've not even seen, you know, how he performs in August or September, October. I know that might sound silly, but we don't know anything close to the full picture or story for most of these players yet. They're all so new. They're all feeling their way into the side. And I guess, you know, Guardiola raised a point. Like, when he said, I can't remember the exact quote, but I'll paraphrase. He said something along the lines of that the reason we won the treble was because we had consistency. It's because it was years of work to get to that point. We weren't a treble winning side straight away under Guardiola. It took us a long time to get there, and that was experience. That was players knowing their job. That was everyone entirely locked into what they had to do. When everyone understood their role in the side, and all the weaknesses had been allowed for. Yeah, everyone was playing to everyone's strengths. He was covering him. He was covering them, and everyone was absolutely locked in. And how can that ever be the case when you've got that many players who are still trying to learn how to get to certain parts of Manchester? Like, it's not even their home. You know, like, for a lot of these people, they've just moved in. They've probably barely been to a handful of, you know, places in Manchester themselves. They're still learning the names and of all the staff around Manchester City. They're still learning the language. They're still trying to find their role. They're still trying to adapt to the Premier League. And you've got several, if not more than several, people doing that at the exact same time. There is no way that stability will ever lead to greatness. And I would argue the fact that Manchester City are currently second and 6 points off this all-conquering Arsenal side in the top 8 of the Champions League, Carabao Cup final, in the FA Cup with a record-breaking win to get us to the next round, I would argue, despite all those factors, and I know we spent a lot of money, but it's really hard to rebuild your vast majority of the side. There's only 3 players remaining in that starting 11 that played against Anfield last season. That is an absurd churn, an absolute absurd churn when it comes to, you know, talent that's shifting around. And I guess I've woke up feeling a little bit philosophical. Maybe it's because I've had it's my anniversary today or whatever, and I'm just looking back a little bit. But it's made me realise, like, I think Guardiola is right when he says there's a lot of quality, but we're going to have to be remarkably patient. You know, like, being patient is not fun. But it's a necessity. The reason all these players were great is because they had time. And what if actually the players that we've got right now can be great? They just need time too. Like, I think we forget, like, even Gundogan wasn't loved the first 2 years of his time at Manchester City. He came out of the shadow when David Silva left and became himself and took over the team in terms of the maturity and his technical ability. But he wasn't like a smash hit straight away. Rodri was Plodri before he was Rodri, before he won the Ballon d'Or, you know? And I'm looking at the collection of players right now, and do you know what? I see a lot of ability, and then I think of something which I'm going to put in the 5 things learned later. I'm going to call it the Mateus Nunes principle. That's a podcast title for you. But the Mateus Nunes principle is the observed improvement of Mateus Nunes over a longer period as his confidence rockets, and he has an approach that's led by training and intensity and working on his mistakes and so on, and finding a role. I would argue that Mateus Nunes could be symbolic as a small microcosm of the story of the entire rebuild, if that makes sense. Difficult to start, but the talent with hard work and dedication finds a way and becomes excellent, because I would argue that Mateus Nunes is the exact proof that if you want to know if a manager's still got it, Guardiola has still got it. Look what Mateus Nunes is doing. I think that is down to Mateus Nunes, but it's also down to the ingenuity and coaching and the dedication of the support staff and obviously Guardiola to make that work, to iron out the weaknesses and put faith in an idea and work on it. Now, if that's just one player, now imagine, look at Nico Riley's already achieving in midfield, given that he's barely a year playing professional football. And he's played multiple positions, and he's getting better every single week. Give him another 2 years. Look what Aït-Nouri's starting to do now. He's playing regularly as well. Give him another year to really adapt. And what's he gonna do? Look at how good Mark Gay's been, but we still haven't seen anything yet of him. Look, imagine how good he'd be in a year. Look at Kusanov's going. Kusanov's going to the very top, but he's still a baby in footballing terms. As he said, he was playing Uzbekistan a bit ago. Like, he's a baby still. Give Semenyo some time here. Even Marmoush is new to this Manchester City side. Then you look for the bench and what Shirky's going to achieve in his career. Nico Gonzalez, hopefully Trafford, Ruben Diaz, you got Tijana Reinders there. Maybe Reinders just needs time. And then you include Doku in that. You include, maybe even Savinio. I don't know how he'll go, but as a squad option, absolutely. And then Josko Vardial. I guess the point I'm trying to make is that I think we really, really, really sometimes, and I include myself in this, underestimate just how much there is to do for this Manchester City side. And Guardiola is under no illusions that this City side is even close to its best. The matter of fact is that this squad has overseen a vast gutting of its principles. It's been scooped out in the middle like a pumpkin at Halloween, and all the innards were thrown everywhere. You got to find a way to light that thing up again. It's not easy to do, and I do feel like this City side, we're stuffing that pumpkin again. I'll let this metaphor go, but we're trying to build something new. It's just going to take an awful lot of time, because all your touchstones, your familiarity, the backbone of the side, it's all been moved on. It's been moved on. And new rhythms and partnerships and trusts and camaraderie. Like, do you know what? I can guarantee you play better when you're friends with your teammates. I can imagine, when you've got... I've just seen a great clip, by the way. Look at this. Let me just find it. I've just seen a brilliant clip. You play better when you trust your colleagues alongside you, when you trust your teammates, and you have that shared experience and trust. And I think right now, this City side is building something. It's building something, and I think we're gonna have to be patient. And I'm very excited to see where it goes. And I think there's signs of real character, and this is a great example. I mean, look at this clip here. I love this. It's Nunes. Nunes giving his Rodri a lift up, exhausted Rodri, and then looks at him and gives him a big cuddle. I mean, look at that. That's that stuff. I know it sounds silly, but that stuff matters. It matters. And I guess I woke up this morning feeling pretty relaxed. I've seen enough to know that the embers of the dying embers of that Manchester City side, the spirit, are still there. It's just we're gonna have to wait, and we're gonna have to let Guardiola mould those players, those rough diamonds. He's gonna chisel away at them slowly but surely, and he's gonna polish up some cracking players. Because I think Mateus Nunes is a great example. The Mateus Nunes principle is the observed effect. I'm a great man indeed. The observation of an improvement in confidence and talent over a sustained period of time, despite initial setbacks, as a reinvention becomes successful. And I think that's what City are trying to do now. And I think Nunes is the great example of that. So yeah, it's a good morning. I'm not going to stay on this video too long because it is my anniversary. I will get out with the family today and have a nice day. But I needed to go live this morning because I woke up in a pretty good mood, and I think the City side are they're fallible. But I don't think Guardiola is under any impressions that they're not. I think Bernardo Silva has admitted afterwards of the game that they're aware of the second half lapses. But I think it is mental. I think it is consistency and rhythm. I think it is, you don't have that shared experience. You know how to do it together. And Kembo in the chat just said, I think we have to forget about the title race and just focus on improving themselves. And that's probably true. It probably is true. There's an element of that. I think this City side has an awful lot of character, a lot of spontaneity, and a lot of ability. It's not as dogged as Arsenal, but I know which side I would rather watch, and I know which side I think has got the higher ceiling personally. And I think this collection of players is full of life, and it's full of a joy of football. And Arsenal may feel that about their own side too, but they are dogs of war, Arsenal, where I think this is going to be a really pure footballing side, and I think it's going to have a lot of underdog stories as well, and a lot of players who I guess the way I feel is that I'm excited because I do feel we'll come out the other side of this with a new bunch of players who are sort of trying to form their own identity. We look at the last 10 years and we saw legends form, in De Bruyne and Gundogan and Bernardo Silva and Fernandinho and Rodri and people like that. Kyle Walker, John Stones. But that took a long time for a lot of these guys. Edison as well, and there's so many, of course. That's just what makes them legends is just time. Like, does anyone really think Kusov won't be better in 2 years than he is now by some way? Likewise, Nori. Likewise, hopefully Marmoush or Shirky, whoever. I think they will be. I think they will be. And if they're all going to be a little bit better, and we're second now, like, can you really not imagine a collective plus 6 point performance difference? If all the players get better in 2 years from now, I just can't see how they don't. I really don't. Especially given I think we'll sign some more players in the summer to replace some departing ones. The only thing I hope is that Bernardo Silva finds a way to imbue some of that spirit and that determination that he's got onto the rest of the side. And the one last thing I want to end on is just a bit of a Bernardo Silva. Bernardo Silva sort of appreciation moment, I guess. Bernardo Silva is one of the most mercurially gifted, technically gifted footballers I've ever seen in the Manchester City shirt. He is remarkably gifted. He really, truly is. And, obviously his technical ability is probably not quite as sparkling as it once was for 5, 6, 7 years ago. But Bernardo Silva is, we'll always remember for that. But despite all his obvious mercurial ability on the ball and that ridiculous touch and technique and the ability to dribble out the tightest of spaces at his very best, the thing that we'll all remember Bernardo Silva for is that unflinching determination, that incredible work rate, that utter love for his team, his club, his teammates, the fans, that dedication to win, to turn up, to be the most reliable player on the pitch, to slot into any single role and give it his absolute all. Bernardo Silva is the ultimate professional, while also being one of the most gifted footballers in the world over the past 10 years. I mean, you could easily just dine out on that technical ability if you wanted to, but no, he still works harder than everyone else. And that, to me, is what I'll remember. When I think of Bernardo Silva 20, 30 years from now, of course I'll remember all the majestic dribbles and the wonderful goals and so on, but I will remember that intensity. Bernardo Silva is the perfect mixture of what you would define as a cult hero. The ones that are likeable, like a Zabaleta, but with actual world-class ability. Zabaleta was a great right-back, but he was never world-class in my opinion. He was very good. He was not like a world-class right-back, Zabaleta. Even maybe he was, but I think Bernardo Silva is better than Zabaleta is what I'm getting at. But Zabaleta had that sort of cult hero feel where he's just like, he was a 7, 8 out of 10 player, but he performed like a 10 out of 10 with his determination. Bernardo Silva has that same attitude while also being a world-class footballer. We're so lucky. We're so lucky because that combination is it's just not common. And it does make him a captain, and it does make him someone that you have to sit and admire. And there are a lot of people, and I think I've been critical when you feel like maybe the wheels have fallen off a little bit. But maybe you felt... I do actually have tweets to back it up where I said I think Bernardo will find his joy a bit more this year if he's given a bit of, energy around him. And I think he has found it. But I did never see him come in as captain. But I feel like, Prince just put it in the chat. He said if Shirky works as hard as Bernardo does, he wins the Ballon d'Or. For the next 5 years, not sure the next 5 years, but he definitely wins the Ballon d'Or a few times. Shirky absolutely could be anything he wanted. If he unlocks a Bernardo-esque gene to work hard, it's over for everyone. Like, he could be the best midfielder in the world. Shirky was working hard yesterday, by the way. I saw him track back. I know he was a substitute, but he was working hard. And I think that spirit, says it all. And I'm in a good mood today. I think this City side is taking a big step forward with that. It doesn't mean they're going to win every game now. They might even lose against Fulham or whatever. But the point is, mentally, they've just shown what they can do. They've just done something that the great Manchester City sides couldn't do, And I like it. I like what I'm seeing. And I love Bernardo Silva. I really like this collection of players. I don't think they're perfect. I think some will slip by the wayside. But I do think there's a lot of character and a lot of talent. And a lot of talent that isn't being propped up in the way that it would have been in a great Manchester City side, because that consistency, that bedrock of stability is so useful for younger players. That isn't there. So these guys are having to learn on the job, and that makes it harder. But still, even in those circumstances, we've seen an awful lot of talent on the show. And I think that, to me, is very encouraging. And we just beat Liverpool at Anfield, and we're 6 points behind. It's a lot. But I think this City side have got a great personality. Total Sports, when we talk about Mark Gay, I mentioned him earlier, mate. And I mentioned, what I said earlier was that I think it's remarkable that he's that good, and we've only seen him for a couple of weeks. Like, I can't even imagine how good he's going to be a year from now, because we don't know what he looks like across the entire season. We don't know how he's going to adapt. But I think, as Guardiola rightfully said, you can tell he's a top player. You can tell he's got immense ability, and you can tell that he's going to be a special footballer for City for a long time. I don't know where Diaz and Vardy fit into this, or even Coutinho. But Mark Gay, he's a proper player. That guy is locked in with loads of confidence, and I think he's going to have a glorious future at Manchester City. Anyway, I'm going to leave it, guys. Remember, the Mateus Nunes principle. Proof that over time, and with a little confidence and reinvention and some new ideas and hard work with some talent, you can go pretty far. And that, to me, what's what I take from this game. Thanks for watching. In a bit, and I'll see you later for 5 Things Learned. Bye-bye.